Alright folks, in this video I'm going to be taking a look at the Xperia Z3 compact tablet, which came out a few months ago and I've been using it for a while. So this review or impressions is not going to focus on this tablet as just a tablet. It's going to be focused on the gaming aspect, since I tend to buy devices mostly for gaming features. Now, the reason I bought the Xperia Z3 compact tablet is because it has a couple of features that sets it apart. Although it officially supports PS4 remote play, which has been hacked into many other devices, this still is a little bit unique compared to other tablets, mainly because of its weight. Now, when you buy a tablet mainly for gaming, you want something that's light, because there 90% chances are that you're going to mount it to either your PS4 controller or you're going to use an ipega 9023 for mobility purposes. So you'd want something light, because trust me, when you use any kind of mount, be it the PS4 controller or the ipega 9023, it does add quite a bit of weight and your wrists will hurt at some point. So as you can see, the tablet is very thin. I do have a Shield tablet here which you can compare it to. So the Shield tablet is quite a bit chunky, and this is pretty thin for what it's supposed to be. It's a very powerful device. It uses the Snapdragon processor. I think it's the 801 and the Adreno GPU, a really powerful one. I think it's the Adreno 330. Yep, it's the Adreno 330. So it uses the Qualcomm 2.5 gigahertz Snapdragon processor, and these are really good specs for gaming. Even though there are dedicated devices out there like the GPDs and JXDs, of course a mainstream device is much more powerful in terms of raw CPU power. And in terms of emulation, you want something that has a powerful CPU more than a GPU, because emulation is more focused on CPU. It needs horsepower to run. So you can also use Moonlight, which is the game streaming app. Although Moonlight doesn't really work too well with Snapdragon, it does have a bit of latency to it, which can be annoying at times. Battery life is really good. So it's at 33% now, but I've been playing it all day today, and it's still going, and that's pretty good. The Shield tablet unfortunately has a pretty bad battery life, but that could be because it uses a much more powerful SoC, which consumes more battery life. However, in terms of emulation, if you are not using GameCube emulation or something like that, it's a bit overkill for old school games like the GBA or the PlayStation Portable. Well, maybe not the PlayStation Portable, but for old school games it's a bit overkill. But this device is really well balanced. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use it with the mount, which I have, and I think I did a review of this a while back. So the mount is fairly easy to use. You just put it on and it mounts in there. It's pretty sturdy, it doesn't fall off. I wanted to show you what the emulation feels like on this, so I'm going to be doing a little bit of PlayStation Portable emulation on it. Played Final Fantasy 3, which actually is available natively on Android. So what is the benefit of using the PlayStation Portable emulator on this tablet compared to using the actual PSP? An emulator, of course, it has its upsides and downsides. One of the upsides is that this has a very nice LCD screen. The colors really do pop, and also you can get the resolution pretty high. You can get it up to 2 times or 3 times depending on the game, and the game looks a lot more clearer than it would on a PSP. On the other hand, you're not getting the same amount of accuracy, because you will certain times have hitches or missing sounds, and that's just something that happens with emulators. You have to kind of deal with it. Another reason why I chose a tablet to play my games rather than using my phone, like the iPhone or even the GPD XD in some cases, not all cases, is because when you're playing first-person shooters, especially in remote play, you do need a bigger area in the screen to look at the enemies, because of the game is built for screens that are bigger screen area. You won't be able to clearly aim or shoot at enemies, and that really hinders gameplay. So for first-person shooters and certain kinds of games, it is better. The other plus point about using a mainstream light tablet is that you can do Saturn emulation. And I'm going to load up Gaurdian Heroes over here. So this is a Sega Saturn game, Gaurdian Heroes, playing on the Xperia Z3 compact tablet. Now the reason I chose the Sega Saturn emulator over other emulators is mainly because the Saturn is probably one of the most hardest systems to emulate. Even on PC, emulators like SFF and Abuse don't work completely. Even though a lot of people say that it works well, a lot of games don't work that well. There are many issues even with Gaurdian Heroes, and it's the same on Android, but luckily the games that do work very well on the Z3 tablet. Now, another reason why I'm showing this emulator off is if you try to play this game on, let's say, a GPD XD, which is another dedicated console that I reviewed, you can't play it because the XD operates at a frequency of 1.4 gigahertz, and although it does have a pretty powerful GPU and a good chipset, it simply cannot work with Saturn because Saturn needs more CPU horsepower. And this comes down to either efficiency of the emulator or the power requirement. So this is a good example of what you can do in a device which is light and powerful at the same time. You can have great Saturn emulation, and the same goes for other devices like the other emulators like the PlayStation Portable. Even though the GPD XD can do PlayStation Portable pretty well, the Xperia Z3 Compact or even the Shield tablet can do it much better. Why? Simply because they are mainstream devices using very expensive SoCs. Now keep in mind the price to performance ratio. I'm not going to go into that. That's really subjective. If it just depends. But in terms of the quality and the performance you get from a tablet like the Shield tablet and the Z3 compact tablet, it is comparable, but you get ups and downs. If you want GameCube emulation, you'd probably want to go with the Shield tablet, which is very powerful with the Tegra K1. But if you are not looking for something that powerful and you want good emulation with Saturn or PlayStation Portable, and you want it in a tablet form factor that's light, I think the Z3 works pretty well. It doesn't feel too heavy with the PlayStation 4 mount, and with the ipega 9023 it's even more comfortable. But then again, it comes down to what kind of form factor you require in your style of gaming. So barring that, some of the other cool things that I like to do with the Z3 tablet is played in portrait mode. Now, people will think that this is crazy. Why would you play games in a portrait mode? Well, mainly because for comfort. Now, I'm going to run the Game Boy emulator on this device, and because it's so light, when using this on the portrait mode, it's actually pretty comfortable. Sorry, I'm holding it wrong. Oh, there we go. Okay. So the reason I like to play it this way is, suppose I don't want to carry my controller around, and most Game Boy games don't require really precise movement. I can just simply use it in this fashion, and it's actually quite comfortable. Another reason is because the aspect ratio works out pretty well. As you can see, the screen is filled and the aspect ratio is correct. Whereas if you were this way, you would have your black bars and it would look a bit blurry because, of course, the resolution of the GBA was not as big. But when you play it this way, it's actually pretty comfortable. And because it doesn't require any accurate motion of sorts, you can play it pretty well. So it is pretty comfortable for a lot of retro games. I do not advise that you actually play games this way unless you're playing something very simple, like I'm playing Baldurs Gate for the GBA over here, a really good game. It's very easy to control. And also, if you need to use your L and R, you just slide down over here. You can press your LR button, so it's pretty easy to use. And that's it for the GBA emulation. I would also like to show some PlayStation 1 emulation. Since this is a Sony device, it's only right that I show off some PS1 emulation. And I will do it with the ipega 9023 controller. Here we have Syphon Filter 1 running for the PlayStation 1 on the Xperia Z3 compact tablet. I'm using the FPSE emulator, which is pretty good. I'm not using RetroArch much because it's such a mess to set up, and then it doesn't work with certain controllers and then works with certain controllers. It's just a real big mess to use, so I don't really use that much. But with FPSE, it's pretty simple. Even EPSXE, that works pretty well as well. Of course, you're going to be losing on many features because RetroArch front end actually has a lot of good filters and shaders that you can use for your old school games. So how comfortable is it to use it with the ipega 9023? It's actually pretty comfortable. It's not very heavy at all. It's easy to, it's kind of portable around the house. You can just sit down, keep it on your lap and play. So yeah, it works well. The emulation, of course, is perfectly fine. It's as good as any other mainstream powerful Android tablet would be. So you're not going to get PC quality emulation, but it's good enough. It's very hard to tell whether it's, hitching up somewhere or not. So for the most part, it's pretty good and works pretty well. I mean, you haven't heard the sound, sorry. So, oops, my bad. It does have music in it, so as you can see, the sound is pretty good. The front-facing speakers are really cool. You can add FX to it. It has treble, true bass technology, sorry, and treble, and yeah, it works out pretty well. So that would be pretty much everything I can say on the Xperia Z3 compact tablet. It is a very expensive tablet, I know that, but it's fun to use. I really enjoy it. A little bit about the tablet, it does have a phone feature built in, so you can put a SIM card in it and you can make calls. It does have a SD card slot over here, which is a little bit finicky to open up because this tablet, I forgot to mention, the biggest feature is that this tablet is waterproof. So if any of you plan to play games underwater, you want to play retro games, if you want to really play Sonic, those underwater levels, and actually be underwater while playing those frustrating levels, you can do this on this tablet. You can do that because it's pretty good. I have tried it out in my swimming pool. It did not die. It worked out pretty well. Of course, I don't recommend that you actually take this in your pool and go inside. It's waterproof to protect it from water. It's not actually meant to be something that you go diving with. So yeah, it's a pretty good tablet, and if you guys are interested in a lightweight gaming tablet, or even if you're somebody who is a previous Shield owner and is looking for something lighter, this tablet would work fine for it. It's a pretty good tablet. The screen refresh rate is 60 Hertz, so you're not going to have issues over there. Front-facing speakers, I've already mentioned that. Oh, it does have a headphone jack, which I haven't mentioned. As for whether it has HDMI out, I'm not sure about that. I haven't really looked up on it, but it probably does. I don't have a TV around over here. I don't use one, so yeah, it should work with the proper cable. I mean, Sony devices have always had that feature. It does. Another cool thing is if you are somebody who actually streams games and all that stuff, it does have a screen record feature. You can actually record the screen, and you can also put your portrait on it while recording. It's very, very good. Similar to what the Shield tablet has with its streaming app. If you've seen my video on Baldurs Gate, that was actually done on the Shield tablet. The reason I'm not using it now is because I think this is about to explode. It was cracking, and I'm afraid to use it. But my replacement hopefully will come in a year, I guess. But yeah, so this is the Xperia Z3 tablet. If you like the video, go ahead and like it. If you dislike it, go ahead and dislike it. But as always, thank you for watching.